Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander viewers are advised that the following program contains images and voices of people who have died. Hello, I'm Miriam Korowa. Welcome to Message Stick. Can Aboriginal knowledge contribute to modern science? Frances Bodkin certainly thinks so. Auntie Fran Bodkin, a Dharawal woman from the region south of Sydney, has degrees in climatology, geomorphology and environmental science. As an Aboriginal elder and knowledge keeper, she's striving to have the tens of thousands of years of Indigenous environmental observation, often recorded in story and law, to be recognised and used by modern society. Delve into the lore of the Dharawal people and discover the hidden truth.
Having Aboriginal knowledge recognised as a science, to me, is one of the most passionate ambitions that I have. And Aboriginal knowledge is a science because it is two of the most important elements of any of our sciences. It is observation and it is actual experience. And those observations and experiences have been put into story. Now, some of those observations, some of our science goes back 80,000 years. You guys have only been here 200 and something years. Our knowledge is still out there, but everybody only has a little bit of it. And the knowledge holders know how to put those little bits together.
I was in Centennial Park and I've been there 20 years. And Fran and I were waiting for a meeting. And we started walking around and she pointed to a thing and said, oh, there was a wallaby here, a little wallaby. That's unusual. They're usually with their parent. And about a month later, she sent me an email saying, I've cleared that up. Somebody working with WISE, which rescues injured animals, said that they've been taking a baby wallaby down there in the morning. I thought, that's amazing. Just a scratch in the ground. And later on in the walk, I said, look at those ants, what do you reckon they're doing? And straight away she said, oh, they're going up to the top of the tree and getting some aphids and taking that food down to the bottom of the tree where they've got a nest. And I started to say, this person actually knows everything I'm looking at. And she said, that plant there, that's what Burke and Wills ate, or tried to eat, and that actually caused damage to their liver because they ate too much of it. So I thought, here I am, 5 decades later, I've learned about Burke and Wills at school, but I knew nothing about the truth of what went in there. I started to see this bush that I'd lived in or visited all my life and realised I actually never see it. And our education system doesn't help us to see it, doesn't educate us about what's really there.
Well, come on. Now. What I want you to do is just to pick one leaf each. Do you think you can do that? Yeah. Without ripping the tree to pieces? The point of any day is to teach the young, to arouse their curiosity. And that's the most important thing. When I was a little kid, that was the one thing that saw me through everything, was curiosity. What I want you to do now is to crunch the leaf up into a little ball. Now rub it between your hands really hard and really fast. And that's what I'm hoping happens with the kids, that If they have a time when their mind is blank, when there's nothing to do, when they're bored stiff, they'll go and they'll seek out the answers to some of the questions that they're there in the back of their minds.
Good, now put your hands over your face and do the same thing as you did before. Doesn't it make you feel good? It's a memory enhancer. That's the koala's favourite food. Now you know why koalas are so nice.
It's sticky.
It's like planting little plants. And because the kids come year after year, you can actually watch them grow and you can actually see their curiosity develop. And I've got 3 or 4 kids now doing science at school, which is just what I wanted. My greatest failure was my son. We wanted him to take science and he became a psychologist. That's not a science. That's black magic.
She's a walking encyclopedia as far as I'm concerned. She's so open about these teachings and she's so willing to share this knowledge with those who would request it, those who deserve it, and most importantly, sharing this knowledge with the younger generations.
Go. Dirt, soil. That's what they've turned the tree into. They have created...
What she's doing there for the Dharawal people, and also what she's doing for the greater Australian society, in my opinion, is immeasurable.
When you see a termite's nest, you know that nearby, within 100 metres, there is water.
The stories that Mum used to tell me was about plants and animals. And everywhere I go, it doesn't matter where I am, there's plants and there's animals. And I'm at home. She was from Matraville and La Perouse, and she was actually one of the very first Aboriginal nurses. But she was the most beautiful woman. She had olive skin, she had green eyes, and she had black hair. And she gave me all those stories and all her knowledge. And I kept it. I never ever told it for a long time, but I needed to make sure. And when I went to uni, I studied all the science subjects that I was allowed to study. I ended up with 5 majors.
Never, ever accept anything. Always ask yourself, not the person who's telling you, ask yourself why, and then find out for yourselves. And then you realise how important all other life is to our lives.
I wasn't much good at school. I got tossed out of so many schools it wasn't funny. Because if you were bad at some of the schools that I was at, they sent you out to work in the garden, which is exactly what I wanted. I learned more in the gardens at school than I learned in school anyway.
There's a lovely big ants nest down here that we're going to.
As I was learning, I think it was in 3rd class at one of the schools, there was a subject called nature study, and it was my favourite subject. I absolutely loved that subject. And I was learning things and about animals and plants that related back to Mum's stories. And I started to think, hey, wait a minute, these are not fairy stories. These are real things.
Right, can you all see the ant's nest? Yeah. Everybody see? These are called meat ants, and they are the environmentalists of the woodlands. I want you to stamp your feet really quickly until I say stop. Keep your eye on the nest. Here come the soldiers. See them all? They're all coming out.
Now, when they start to swarm, you know you've got a thunderstorm coming. My dad was a scientist and an inventor. He was a wonderful, wonderful man, very, very quiet, but he had this intense, absolutely intense love of sound. And he said, he used to always say that sound is the building block of the universe.
whenever I could, I think I was 12, I read a 24-volume encyclopedia. I was sick at the time, I had pneumonia, and I was bored, so I read the whole thing. And I started to think, all this knowledge here, it's just what my mum's been teaching me anyway, through story. And I thought, this is a great way to teach.
That's the direction the rain will be coming from. Oh, that way, actually. Yeah, and it also means, while the hole is still open, we know we've got at least 4 hours. Once they close that little hole up, we've got 4 hours till it rains. So if you've got any of those little ants' nests in your home, and you see them close up their little hole, you can go to your mum and say, quick, bring the washing off the line, it's going to rain in 4 hours. And she'll think you're brilliant.
A number of years ago, I actually surprised her when someone asked us why our relationship had lasted so long and seemed to work so well. And my comment was, there wasn't a day goes by where I'm not surprised by it. I suppose her achievements, if you want to look at it, have come through her a lot of ability to work with other people and connect people together, or the right people together to get the right outcome, or just to sit down and, because it needs doing, just do it.
Just her knowledge of plant life, her knowledge of politics, her experiences, her life experiences, both within Indigenous and non-Indigenous affairs, is unbelievable in that regard.
She's published, about 15, 20 years ago, she published a book called Encyclopedia Britannica, which was, at the time, the largest single-authored, single-illustrated book published in Australia. It was a big, thick, botanical listing of plants. But her achievements go from that sort of, very noticeable thing to some very quiet, modest things. And I think these are the more remarkable things, where she's had some impact and effect quietly on different people's lives.
Have you children heard of the stolen generations? This little boy represents the one that was stolen. See how his hand is like this? Because he's being pulled away. And some of them never ever got to see their parents ever again. Some of them didn't even know who their parents were. Others were lucky. I was one of the lucky ones. We found our parents and we got back to them.
One of the things that really fascinated me, because I had all these foster homes when I was a kid, and it was 2 old ladies at Cronulla, they found out I could read, and they made me read the Bible, and every time I made a mistake in pronouncing the names, and some of those names in that Bible were terrible, they would give me a cane, hit me with a cane.
What we have here is what we call a river of tears.
And I remember one morning getting up really early, and I went down to the water and I was crying, and I was going to swim away.
That's it. There's the tears for the little boy.
And my tears tasted like salt. And I bent down and I touched the water and I put it in my mouth, and it was salty too. And I thought, the sea must be made up of all the tears of all the sad people in the world. And I thought, so I'm not the only sad person. And I thought, I'm going to fix sadness. And I ran away and got back home. But I never, ever forget the salt, the taste of the sea, and all those sad, sad people. And I thought, well, I'm not the saddest one, and I'm not the only one.
The unit that I teach, it's a mixture of history of ideas and environmental ethics, but it's all, the way I teach it, it's all from a very much European perspective, because I'm a European and that's my background, but I think that's not fully adequate for what I want the students to get out of it.
The time of the lyrebird is the shortest time of all. When the lyrebird starts calling and building his mound,
You know that the August winds, the really cold southwesterly winds, are not far away.
To give them a wider perspective on the issues of the human relation to nature, I invite Fran to the Graduate School of the Environment to give the students that broader view, and I think it's very useful to have that other, very different perspective.
Now, you all know that this is a cup, but just pretend you've never ever seen a cup before. I want you to describe what you see.
White.
Mm-hmm.
Rectangle.
Yes?
Looks curved.
The Dharawal people actually had 13 truths, and the lawmakers had 13 truths. Now, the first truth is what you see. And it can be an action, it can be a spoken word, it can be an object, it can be anything at all. It is what you see, it is how you perceive it. The second truth is how others perceive it. What side is the ring on?
The ring's on the left-hand side.
What side is the ring on? Everybody sees things differently. All of the truths are different because you perceive them from a different position or you perceive them from different knowledge. And this is where we get a big mistake in relationships between Aboriginal people and others. Whereas others see only one truth, and that is the only truth. Whereas Aboriginal people see a wide spectrum of truths. The third truth is combining what everybody perceives to be the one thing. And it's only when you are capable of seeing the truth, the same truth from other eyes, can you recognise the what is, the third truth. But there's also another two truths that are really, really important. Everything has a history and everything has a consequence. And you must consider all of those things.
I think that's one of the values of having Fran come along and impart this, at least some of the knowledge to these students, because getting that different perspective, it automatically builds into their worldview. And these are largely professionals or people who are about to become professionals in the environmental field. So they'll take that background knowledge with them. And I think gradually over the years that will feed in an Indigenous perspective into the way we manage land.
Thousands of people have died after a series of earthquakes, tidal waves and flash floods struck a wide area.
It's a natural disaster on a global scale.
It's not correct. No, that's not correct. No, that's why I wanted to talk to you.
I want Aboriginal knowledge recognised as a science. Because it is a science. You know, we don't have enough scientists. More particularly, we don't have enough observational scientists. You see, Aboriginal science, and this is the ultimate aim of what I'm doing, is to have Aboriginal knowledge recognised as a science. Why can't those people out there recognise our stories as valid as their history? Because we recorded it differently, because we didn't write it down, doesn't mean to say it's not as true, that it doesn't contain the facts. In fact, by passing it down orally, we are ensured that it's passed down properly. We have tens of thousands of years of observation and experience, and that's all recorded in our stories and knowledge. Today, the scientists are measurement and experiment. Now, if we could combine those two sciences, then we just don't have the last couple of thousand years of knowledge. We have tens of thousands of years of knowledge. And if we can combine those, maybe we'd be heading in a better direction than we are now.
One of my roles at the Bureau is I'm involved in what's called the Indigenous Weather Knowledge Project. The purpose of this project is to recognise and acknowledge the value of the climate and weather information collected by the Indigenous inhabitants of the country over the tens of thousands of years. So our interaction with Auntie Fran is that she came forward as a representative of the Dharawal people from the Sydney region and told us that she would like to become involved in our Indigenous Weather Knowledge Project and use the website as a facility to share the seasonal calendar or seasonal weather information of the Dharawal people, which pleased us immensely because the whole concept of our project and of our website is that we want it to be a facility for different Aboriginal communities to use.
I'm quite proud of it, really, that they have done that. I did study at uni, I did study meteorology because I needed to know that, again, what my mum had told me was right. And it's just all fitted into place. It's great.
She has put up from the Dharawal people, a seasonal calendar based on the changes in plants and flowering of particular plants. There's seasonal calendars that are based on plants and animals and changes in the environment and so on.
Well, we'll start with the smallest of the lot, the ants. People just don't realise how important they are. They're important medicinally, but they are very important to tell us what is going to happen to our weather. And each different species of ant can tell you a different thing about what's happening to the weather. The little black ants, they build a little mound around their nest. And the highest side of that little mound tells you the direction the rain is coming from. The meat ants put stones on their nests. Now the colour of the stones will indicate to you how hot or how cold the weather is going to be. In the spring equinox, they will start to put light coloured stones on their nest, and the paleness of the stone will indicate how hot the summer is going to be. In the autumn equinox, they will start to put dark stones on their nest, and the darkness of the stones will indicate how cold the winter is going to be.
That's something that is growing, and once it reaches critical mass, will make an important contribution, just to let the people of Australia know that weather and climate doesn't just exist of radar and long time series of data and graphs and so on. It also consists of this other type of knowledge that has been collected over the years and is sort of more representative of how you adapt to weather and climate and live with it and make it part of your culture.
I think we've got very slim threads with that deep knowledge, and they're disappearing. I mean, when Auntie Fran goes, other than recordings made of her talking and the stuff she writes down, I'm not sure that much of what she's got is going to be kept. I don't know, but that's my sense of it.
Well, as we got promised, I'm going to tell you the story of the parrots.
You go into Wikipedia and there's a mention in there of the Dharawal nation, and they say the culture is basically being lost, the language is lost.
The big black cockatoo stood up and he said, "Thank you, Bundalook."
But here's Mum going to primary schools and high schools, going into TAFEs, teaching teachers the Dharawal language. She's this beacon of light. She's making sure that the values and the teachings of this culture will survive into upcoming generations.
You'll see that his tail is missing 2 feathers. And that is why the king parrot is a different colour to his wife.
The other things you can learn from people like Fran, and there's more than one of the Frans of this world, is the wealth and the worth of really basic values such as, loyalty, respect for others, not putting up with crap and dealing with it, but often dealing with it in a manner that those dealt with arise above where they were.
It's really a wonderful old tree, isn't it? And the size of it indicates that it could be up to 900 years old. Just think of all the things that tree has experienced. Anyone can learn from our knowledge. We do have secret knowledge that we wouldn't pass on. But this knowledge that we have of the climate, of course it will help, because it means our survival too. Can you see how things are a big circle of life? And we must understand those circles before we break them. One of my favourite things I like to close with when I'm lecturing in any of the sciences is, you guys think you know everything. But we've survived 80,000 years here. Can you?
Well, that's the show for this week. If you'd like to watch this program again, go to abc.net.au/messagestick. See you next week.
Next stick kuni balanda yako.